Welcome to PAC Facts. I'm Dr. Devin Paulus-Compart, Technical Service Manager with Papillon. Today I'm going to talk about probiotics, what they are, how they work, when you should use them, what a typical animal response might be, and how to select one. Let's start with what probiotics are. Probiotics are live microorganisms that confer a benefit to the animal when consumed. There are two primary categories of probiotics in the ruminant space. The first is live yeast, and the second is live bacteria. Let's start by talking about how live yeast work in the ruminant animal. One of the ways that live yeast work is by optimizing the rumen environment. They do this by taking up excess oxygen, which makes the rumen more hospitable to native microbes. They also stabilize rumen pH, which means you're less likely to have a cow with acidosis. Live yeast further enhance the rumen microbiome by establishing the rumen microbiome earlier in young calves, and also by altering microbial populations in the mature ruminant. They primarily are going to shift towards more fiber-digesting bacteria as well as lactic acid utilizers. Finally, live yeast boost rumen activity. They primarily do this by acting as a source of micronutrients for rumen bacteria. This in turn leads to increased microbial growth in the rumen, which further leads to increased microbial protein and VFA production. Now that we've talked about how live yeast work in the ruminant, let's talk about live bacteria. Live bacteria do several things in the ruminant. One thing they can do is fortify the microbiome. That means they can modify the microbial population in the gut towards those good bacteria. They can increase nutrient digestion and absorption by supporting the ruminant papillae and lower gut papillae. They also fight against pathogens. They can produce antimicrobial substances, alter gene expression of pathogens, and outcompete pathogenic bacteria for space in the gut. And finally, live bacteria support overall health. This is through immunomodulation, meaning they modify the immune system to make it more effective, and by supporting barrier integrity. This means that they make the lower gut less likely to have leaky gut. So when should you use a probiotic? You can use a probiotic during periods of stress, such as transition, dry off, transportation, or weaning. You can use a probiotic for pathogen control, particularly when it comes to things like Clostridia, E. coli, or Salmonella, among many others. You can use a probiotic to support rumen health, particularly rumen pH and VFA production. You can use a probiotic to support lower gut health by reducing symptoms of leaky gut and improving nutrient absorption. You can use probiotics with young calves to help establish the rumen microbiome and reduce scours. And finally, probiotics can be used for forage utilization because they support forage digesting bacteria in the rumen. So what are typical responses to probiotics? Live yeast have been heavily researched and shown to increase dry matter intake, milk yield, and milk fat. Live bacteria, on the other hand, have been shown to improve milk yield and components, dry matter intake, feed efficiency, as well as reduce disease. The response to either live yeast or live bacteria is going to depend on the species, strain, and dose of yeast or bacteria fed. I want to wrap up today's talk by discussing how to select a probiotic. Obviously, there are a lot of probiotic products in the marketplace, and it can be hard to know which one to use. One thing I like to consider is the particular bacterial species and strains used, as well as the number of colony-forming units, or number of live bacteria. Certain strains and species are going to be selected for different things in the animal, so you want to consider that. Colony-forming units refers to the number of live bacteria in the product or live yeast. Generally, higher numbers better, although this doesn't always apply. Second, understand the probiotic selection process. A good company will typically have evaluated thousands and thousands of different yeast and bacteria from all around the world to find those that are most suitable for the rumen environment and most likely to have positive impacts on the ruminant animal. Third, look for data on probiotic mode of action. A good product will have data showing the variety of ways that the probiotic works in the animal. And finally, look for data in animals facing stressors. Typically, we're using a probiotic because animals are facing pathogens, environmental stressors, or stressors such as transition, dry-off, transportation, or weaning. Ideally, we want to see data showing that these probiotics are effective in helping those animals get through those stressors more effectively than without a probiotic. To learn more about Papillon's customizable solutions or how we can help you find the best way forward, visit papillon-egg.com.